So here's a light pod, and it's got the brand new Neolight units, which have the incorrect bulbs compared to the original from the Elan. So what turns out is that right now I could plug this as it was in the Elan, but then my dipped beams would be my main lamp, would be attached to my main enclosure, and my main beams would be attached to my dipped beam enclosure. So, you know, that would just annoy a lot of people on the road, and it would also fail the MOT. So what I need to do is swap the connectors around in practice, and that's the first thing that I'm going to do before I fit everything else back in, and then I show you how I'm going to adjust this so that it raises up without touching anything, and so on. So first of all, the electrics. Let's get started with that. So I've already cut off the spade connectors from this one, so all I have to do is install in here effectively one of those, but instead of using that one, which I could, and there's nothing wrong with that, I'm just going to fit a brand new one, because I already bought it. If I haven't bought this one already, I would just swap it around, but since I already got it, I'm going to use a brand new one. Now, when it comes to electrical connections, there's always two options. You can solder things together, or you can crimp things together. I'm going to crimp these together because it's just more practical for me. If I was doing this and being paid for someone else, I would definitely be soldering things together, because it's a more stable connection. But if I crimp things together, it's also easier to use crimps to connect this to this and then swap them around if I need to, which you can always go back to the original installation if there are different units that we replace in the future. So, with that in mind, all I have to do is strip these wires, connect them, and that's it. Well, so just by looking at this, you can see that the blue is this side, so that will be the red. So my positive is the red, my ground is that one, which ends up being the blue, and yellow is a spare one, so I'm not going to touch the yellow one. Okay, so that is the first side. Positive to the red, ground to the blue. Looks a bit awkward, but it's the way it works. So this is the old one, so I'm just going to cut it near the edge and fit spade connectors there. Okay, so that is the wiring sorted. The next thing is to fit in the light pod and then adjust it. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that now. So to make my life easier, I have retracted the light pod there. I'm just going to plug the wiring first. So now, in order to make my life easier, I'm going to connect these first. A bit too much resistance. So before proceeding, I'm just going to throw some silicone grease and free up those bearings. Right, so now that's freed up and it moves very easily. So that makes life easier for the motors and myself. So going back to where we were. So what I'm going to do is just align it so that it opens and closes without touching anything of the clamshell. And hopefully it will be aligned in such a way that the bonnet can open and close just fine. The height adjustment, I'm going to do that another day. And what I'm going to use is just a few pieces of cardboard to make sure that the distance around here it's about roughly equal. So for a start, I'm just going to put a couple of nuts there. So as of right now, I now need to move the little rod so that it closes completely and remove anything that is in the way. Right, so now all I have to do is just give myself some clearance all around and test it with the most important part of the being here, this corner, which needs to open and close without touching anything. So this right now looks like a good clearance. So I'm gonna try to tighten these bolts, and then it's a trial and error situation, so I'm probably going to set up the camera on time lapse now, and then you'll just see how many attempts I need to do to get this to fit. But as of right now, I'm seeing some issues with the height of the light pod. Okay, so I've done some fixing, and now the light pod sits flush. So what I had to do was to reposition this ring and twist it a tiny bit to the side, so that this this connector, this clip, would not be pushing against there, and you can see the scratches there, so you know the damage is done now. Anyway, so now that this can sit flush completely, I can finally fit everything. Okay, so that's the electrical stuff done. Now I'm gonna push this out and replace here the things that are not stainless steel with stainless steel, so that I get everything with the best quality that I can get. As you see, there is a mixture of stainless steel and non-stainless steel parts already, and I'm just going to make it more consistent. One stainless steel 3mm washer, rod, another stainless 3mm rod from the light pod, then hopefully that camera over there is seeing this, so I put another stainless here, clears out that, then a washer, a spring washer, and a nylock nut. 30mm bolts with washers, so that they will fit in here on top of that bracket. So I'm tightening the bolts by hand, so that then I can line up the pod and finally give them a good tighten them properly with the spanner. So I have some cards here that will give me an idea of how well things are going. So this now feels about right. There's a bit of a misalignment around here, and I think this misalignment means that I need to shorten one of these screws. I'm not quite sure just yet, but I'm going to just give it a test drive right now to see how the pods raise and lower and how they move right now. So that's all the way raised up. Got my cards back. There's still a bit clearance there, so that's good. And I don't see anything blocking anything at the moment. Of course, the wires will have to be rearranged. So just lowering now the light pod and see how it sits when it's lowered. Right, so that's as far as it goes, and it's still out of alignment. It seems to need to somehow raise here and then lower there or something. I'm not quite sure, but it feels like it needs to tilt. Now to me this seems to be the correct position, and I just need to adjust that rod a little bit to let it go a little bit further back. So I'm going to give that a try. Just lock it into this position and then try to adjust the rod to give it a little bit more movement backwards, and see if it sits flush or not. I may be causing myself more trouble because I know things were aligned before and I never changed the alignment of that rod. However, I am definitely too high in here and I've removed all of the shims. So maybe before, when there was shims, the rod made sense and things were aligned somehow. Or maybe everything was out of alignment before, I don't really remember. But I'm gonna give it a try and we'll see how things go. Right, that is the rod coming out. That is the stuff that came out with it. And now I just need to shorten this rod by enough to make things sit flush. Right, this has been shortened by 2 turns on this side here. So we'll see if it sits flush when it's fitted or not. Okay, so this is with the other 1.5 turns. It's already fitted. I've not tightened everything yet, but it feels it's almost flush. Here it's a bit low, there it's a little bit high, so I think if I just try to adjust this once again a tiny bit, it will come down. So I'm gonna put that one, the rod at the back, it's going to be attached now. So there's the rod in here. This side's already attached. The one at that side is not attached yet. So the only thing left now is to tighten that screw there that holds the bracket to the motor. And that will be the light pod installed. Just giving it another test run. Perfectly clear from here. So I just need to then close the bonnet, and hopefully this will not be too far up and touching the bonnet. If it is, then I need to readjust, and this gap looks quite big, so there is a good chance that I'm going to need to readjust. Whew, that's a bit too close. There's a very good chance that this will touch, so I need to lower this side, and I also need to put a couple of washers in this side. And here is quite interesting because the bonnet can go a little bit lower, and it can actually go lower than the clamshell. So I need to raise the stop bump there a little bit, but the bonnet needs to go lower than it is going right now, and I don't know why it's not going further down, but I'm going to push everything down a tiny bit. By readjusting the light pod further down, I may need to do half a turn on the rod again, because by pushing it down, the rod actually will be closer. So I may need to readjust the rod by pushing this down. So we'll have to fiddle with that again and see how it goes. Now, I'm not going to show you that because this takes me forever to film. So I'll just come back with the end result. Okay, so I have readjusted the screw, lined up this a little bit further down, and then gave it 2 washers to raise it a little bit. And as far as this light pod is concerned, I am considering it aligned enough. I'm gonna have to try to switch on the car and raise the headlamps to find out if it's catching in there or not. But I'm probably going to lower this side. Actually, last time no, I'm going to have to lower this side here a tiny bit so that clears out, and when the light pods lift, nothing goes wrong. And by lowering that, this corner should raise a tiny bit, and this may raise a tiny bit as well. And if this raises a tiny bit, depending on how much it raises over there, I may go over or not. So I'm gonna readjust that a tiny bit and see where things go. Okay, so I've spent a couple of hours adjusting, readjusting and everything. I didn't have to twist more the little rod. It was mostly just adjustments, and at the end I had to pull the bonnet a little bit up to give it the clearance around here that it needs, because this won't go further out than it is. It's already at the maximum adjustment that it can go. So I've already tested this, but I'm just going to show you for the sake of showing that it's clearing and it's not touching anything right now. And I've done the same on the other side, obviously. So that is the light pods installed and aligned. It was quite a challenge to align them after all, but they're done. So I need to move on to the next part. But until then, I hope you enjoy this video, and I will see you in the next one.